In this video, we answer the question, is Social Security's cost of living adjustment rigged? Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
Every year, around mid-October, Social Security's cost of living adjustment number is announced. This number tells people what the increase is going to be to their Social Security payment. This number is usually somewhere between 2 and 3%, but it was as high as 8.7% back in 2023 and as low as 1.3% in 2021. Around the same time, the announcements plastered all over the media, and the comments section on the various media sites blows up. The number is rigged, they say. My cost wasn't 2.5%, it was 10%, and I stayed home for the last 12 months. On and on the comments go. So, are they right? Is the cost of living adjustment rigged? For those of you who don't know, the COLA adjustment isn't a super secret calculation. It's simply the measure of inflation, as announced by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. In this case, inflation is the Consumer Price Index, and CPI, as it's often called, is used both by private industry and the government. Every month, the BLS team goes out and they collect 80,000 prices from 75 different urban areas in 8 different categories. They then give each category a weighting, and those weightings determine what the final number is, i.e. your cost of living adjustment. If, for example, the average person spends 15% of their income on food, then the food category will get a 15% weighting. Now, this is where people start to get concerned. They ask questions like, how do I know that they're not inputting lowball numbers into those 80,000 numbers? That's a lot of numbers. And how do I know that the weightings are correct? These are fair concerns because the average person isn't going to be able to go out and check 80,000 data points, and they're not going to know whether or not their 20% spend on food is really different than the national average, or they're just saying that the national average is 15%. And also, there isn't just one CPI number. There are actually 3. There's also CPI broken down by region, and CPI stripping out food and energy because it's volatile, and they want to smooth the numbers and see what true inflation looks like. And of the 3 headline numbers, CPI-U is the one that you hear about and read about in the newspaper. It covers 93% of the population. CPI-W covers 29% and really represents urban wage earners and clerical staff. And CPI-E represents the people who are in retirement, and it weights a lot more towards things like healthcare and housing. In other words, there are a lot of ways to look at inflation. Inflation for the majority of people out there, inflation for trade workers, or inflation for people in retirement. Then what happens if you live in a high cost of living state like Hawaii, which is 190% of the national average, or a low cost of living state like Mississippi, which is 85% the national average? Now, to begin with, let's talk about which of the 3 categories the COLA adjustment comes from. It's CPI-W, which represents 29% of the population. So you can begin to see that even if the price inputs are accurate, they might not be accurate for you. Then there's the next point, and I save this one for last because this is the biggest one. The government will change a price if the current product is better than the original product. For example, if you spent $1,200 back in 2015 to buy a laptop, and that laptop had 4 gigs of RAM space and 256 gigs of hard drive space, you couldn't find that laptop today. No software would run on it, or at least not much out there would run on it. Today, you might still pay $1,200 for a laptop because when technology improves, sometimes the price actually goes down. So if you went out and bought a laptop today and it was $1,200, it might have 16 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte of hard drive space. Now, because your new laptop, same price as your old laptop, has better features, the Bureau of Labor Statistics is going to discount that $1,200 price you paid today. The team making the adjustment at the BLS will take that $1,200 price and use a mathematical model to bring down the price, and so the equivalent computer today might be $600 or $700, not $1,200. And that is the number that they're going to use as the number in one of those 80,000 entries. Is it fair? I don't know. I suppose if you're comparing like for like, it could be fair. Does it feel fair? Absolutely not. And by the way, just to give a little bit of cover fire to the BLS, if you went out and you bought your car insurance, it does the exact same thing, but in reverse. If you buy a new car and you drive it off the lot and you total the car a month from now, it's going to be worth a lot less money, even before you total it. And the revised value is what your insurance company is going to give you as a fair value for the car. They're not going to give you the replacement price of the car. They're going to give you the used car price. And this often causes loans to be underwater. That's where the term underwater comes from. Speaking of cars, CPI does the same thing for cars. My wife's first car was a 1987 Dodge Shadow. The car had manual crank-down windows and no airbags. You could upgrade and get crank-down windows. They were an additional $300 at the time, and the airbag was $1,000. But you could get it, but only one on the driver's side. In today's dollars, that single airbag would cost $2,600, and the electric windows would cost $780. Anti-lock brakes weren't available on her car back then, but they were available on luxury cars, and it was about a $1,000 upgrade, again, about $2,600 in today's dollars. Now, virtually all of today's cars have 2 front airbags, at least 2 side curtain airbags, electric windows, and anti-lock brakes. In today's dollars, that's about $2,600 times 4. That's for 4 airbags, plus $780 for the power windows, and $2,600 for anti-lock brakes, for a total of $13,780 for standard features today that weren't available or were available as an upgrade back in 1987. Add to that things like backup cameras, automatic transmission, keyless entry, cruise control, halogen headlights, and of course air conditioning. There would be a significant adjustment to the purchase price of a car on that list of 80,000 items. So if you take the equivalent of a Dodge Shadow today, because they don't sell the Dodge Shadow anymore, let's say the Mitsubishi Mirage, that car sells for about $19,200. And it comes with airbags, it comes with an automatic transmission, air conditioning, rear cameras, it comes with anti-lock brakes, and everything else that we listed. All of that is standard on the Mitsubishi Mirage. You'd have to take off $13,780 from that $19,200 price, which means that that car is listed for $5,420 in that list of 80,000 items. These mathematical adjustments have a name, by the way. They're called hedonic adjustments, and many of the items on that 80,000 item list have hedonic adjustments. So now you have a $1,200 laptop listed for about $600 or $700, and a $19,200 car listed for $5,420. Does that mean that CPI is basically worthless? Fortunately, no. Hedonic adjustments are made to about 4 or 5% of the items on that 80,000 item list, which accounts for 8 to 12% of the dollar volume on that list. Hedonic adjustments are made in these categories: vehicles, consumer electronics, home appliance, housing, and apparel. Now, I can see how hedonic adjustments work on cars, electronics. We just discussed both of those. Appliances, that makes sense too. It's kind of like electronics. Even houses, because today houses have more rooms, bigger rooms, and construction material is less expensive. I wish I could tell you why apparel seems to be a category. I'm sure that there's a reason. If you know, put it in the comment section below. So, what's the actual impact on CPI? And by adjustment, what's the actual impact on the cost of living adjustment? Well, a lot of different private industry organizations and government organizations have done the math. It seems to be between 0.1 and 0.2%. So the cost of living adjustment for 2025 was 2.5%. It might have been as high as 2.7% if the hedonic adjustments weren't actually implemented. So why are you feeling like the COLA adjustment doesn't reflect your reality? Well, your feelings aren't wrong. If you go back to the comment I made about living in Hawaii versus living in Mississippi, the same thing applies to the categories. The categories probably don't represent you because you don't spend exactly like the average person. And you could be in a situation where your category or categories are much more expensive. So what if the 2026 cost of living adjustment is 2.7%? That seems to be the direction it's heading given the first 10 months of information. Of course, we don't know what the last 2 months are going to show, but if nothing changes, it'll be about 2.7%. Does that mean that your costs have only gone up 2.7%? Well, if you heat your home with natural gas, your natural gas bill has gone up approximately 13.8% if your natural gas provider has passed on the average to you. And if over the last 12 months, July 24 to July 25, you were writing the check out every single month, and you saw a 2.7% increase in the CPI and you thought, my gas bill is much higher, that number is completely off, you would be correct that it's completely off given your weighting. Or let's say you're looking at your car insurance. According to the first 10 months of CPI information, car insurance is up about 5.3% year over year, not 2.7%. But it goes the other way too. Let's say you heat your home with heating oil instead of natural gas. Heating oil has had a decline of 2.9% year over year, July 24 to July 25. Groceries are down 0.5%. Hotels were down -1% and prescription drugs down 0.2%. So if you spend your money in these areas instead of natural gas and car insurance, you're probably not going to be as passionate about how the COLA number is rigged. But if you call your sister who heats her home with natural gas, she's going to be very passionate about that. So outside of government employees making illegal adjustments to the inputs for the Consumer Price Index or COLA, the COLA number probably isn't rigged so much as they just don't have the balance right for your specific situation and a lot of people's specific situation. There are a lot of things that can be done, but they're not going to be perfect. The first is switch the benchmark from CPI-W to CPI-E, which represents a higher weighting towards medical costs and costs around the home. There could also be an argument for weighting for regional CPI, although it gets a little bit messy if someone decides to move states to reduce their costs, and in doing so, their Social Security payment goes down. As a reminder, Labor Day is the last day that you can buy my course, Social Security Simplified, for 50% off. I'm giving 50% off for early adopters, but you need to move fast. If this is of interest to you, go to holyschmidt.com/social security so that you can learn more. If you like this video, check out that video, things you can now do at age 62. This is Jeff Schmidt, and I will see you in that video right there.